This is 8th grade lesson 4.4, and today we're going to be looking at y-intercept. And the goal for the day is I can find the y-intercept from a table, graph, and equation. Now, up till now we've worked on slope, which is another way to say rate of change, which is just telling how much is a linear equation that changes at the same amount every time, how much is it changing by? As x increases by 1, what does y increase by? Now we found this by looking at graphs, we found this by looking at tables and 2 points. What we're going to do today is we are going to find the y-intercept, which goes hand in hand with that. So the y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis, or basically, it's what does y equal when x equals 0. When you're looking at a graph, x equals 0 is that y-axis, and so at what point does your line cross that y-axis? And we're going to look at that, and then we're going to go a step further. We've looked at graphs, we've looked at tables, we're going to look at equations, and we're going to see how this goes hand in hand with equations. So let's just jump in with some examples. We're going to start with tables, or not tables, these are graphs. We're going to start with graphs. So here's our first graph, example number 1. I'm looking at this graph. And if I wanted to count the slope, I could see here it crosses, let's see, here and then here. So my slope is 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's my slope. We've already done that. Now I want to look at the y-intercept. Where does it cross the y-axis? Well, it crosses the y-axis here at the point 0, 1. So my y-intercept is 1. And you see I put the letters M and B here. M is used to represent slope. B is used to represent the y-intercept. Why they use those letters, I don't know. But that's what they chose to use. So whenever you see like M and B, know that M is standing for slope, B is standing for y-intercept. So here the y-intercept is 1. The slope is 4/5. Okay, so here's example 2. In this case, we're given the points. So the slope, which is our M, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces down, 1 space over. So that's a slope of -6. And the y-intercept, it crosses the y-axis at +2. So y-intercept, or B, is +2. So looking at a graph, it's really easy to find the y-intercept. Where does the line cross the y-axis? Now with a table, it's kind of harder. Not always. It can be pretty easy. Remember that the y-intercept is the point where it crosses the y-axis, or it's what x equals if y equals 0. Or it's what y equals when x equals 0. So here, x equals 0 right here. So my y-intercept is going to be 2. So the y-intercept is 2. Now the slope, remember we find the change in y over change in x. So this is changing by 3 as this changes by 1. So the slope is 3. But the y-intercept is 2 because where x equals 0, y equals 2. Now this one is a little bit harder because you can see I don't have x equals 0. What we have to do is we have to figure out what x would equal to 0. And we do that by finding our slope. So as y is changing by 7 each time, you can see 19 minus 12 equals 7. X is changing by 5. So my slope here is 7/5. Now I can use that to work backwards. I want to find what happens if x equals, if y equals, what happens if x equals 0? So, well, x changes by 5, as y changes by 7, x changes by 5. So this is going up by 5 each time. Well, if I go down by 5, this gives me 0. If I go down by 5 here, this gives me, go down by 7 here, this gives me 5. So my y-intercept here is 5. You see this is going by 5, so work backwards. 5 less is going to be 0. And on the other side, it's changing by 7 each time. Well, 7 less is going to be 5. Wow, don't know what just happened there. There we go. So My y-intercept is 5. Okay, finally we're going to look at an equation. Now, slope-intercept form is in the form y equals mx plus b. And remember I told you m is the slope, b is the y-intercept. So in an equation, it's basically looking at the numbers. Whatever's being multiplied by x, that's your slope. Whatever's being added or subtracted, that's your y-intercept. So here I have y equals 3x minus 5. So y equals mx plus b. M is my slope, so my slope here is 3. B is my y-intercept, so my y-intercept is negative 5. On this next one, again, I do y equals mx plus b, where m is my slope, b is my y-intercept. 2 is what's being multiplied by x, so my slope is 2. My y-intercept is 3. Now we'll do more practice on this in class, so I will see you tomorrow. Come with questions.